Hi, and welcome to our Retired Nomad Adventures.
I'm Retired Rick.
And I'm Daphne, and we are a retired couple who sold everything to travel the world full-time, staying in each new destination about a month at a time. And we're coming near the end. In fact, we have 3 days left of our stay here in Rome, Italy. And whenever we come near the end of a stay, we always look to see, is this someplace that we could cycle back to long-term?
And we're talking long term, we're talking 3 months at a time. And to visit is like a vacation for 2 weeks, but if we could stay here for 3 months, that's our definition of long-term living.
Yeah, eventually we'd like to sort of find those places that we could cycle back to again and again, sort of our spots. And so let's see if Rome meets the criteria for our spots. But first, why did we choose to come to Rome? And so as full-time travelers now, we had a big bucket list destination we had never been to. So neither of us had ever been to Italy. So we started in Venice, we went to Florence, and now we're here in Rome. And Rome is the perfect long-term destination in terms of being connected to the rest of Italy. So it's really good for us to kind of take an exploration of how it meets our checklist. So the first thing we take a look at is this a big city? You know, what's the size of the place? And so Rome is big. So there's 2.8 million people kind of in proper Rome. And then in the wider area, there's over 4 million people that make up the population of Rome.
And it is a tourist destination, so there are always crowds everywhere. But here in Rome, everything is so big and widespread, it doesn't feel like you're bombarded with people, even though in a concentrated area there are a lot of people.
Yeah, especially in those like hotspot tourist places, there's a lot of people there. But everywhere else, it feels like there's like wide sidewalks. We're staying in the San Saba area, and that's about 1.5 miles out from sort of the historic city center. And so this is a true residential neighborhood, and it feels very calm, very relaxed. But even the hustly bustly part of the city of Rome feels like a really livable city. It doesn't feel like you're tripping over people, except for every now and then. It feels like you can make your way around and enjoy your time. Next thing we take a look at is, what is the crime like, or how safe do we feel? And I'll say during our time in Rome, like, I felt really safe. We've even been out a couple of times at night, which is not necessarily like us. And during our walk, haven't felt unsafe at all. But it's a big city. So in a big city, you certainly have to be mindful, and pickpocketing is something everybody kind of warns you about here.
And I've had that happen to me on 2 occasions. We were in an open center, and I had a gentleman come up and brush my shoulder, just kind of like that, like there's something on me. But it's kind of against my nature to not acknowledge him, but I have to consciously just keep going forward and not even pay attention to them. And that's what I did. And that happened on 2 occasions. And I guess what happens is you get distracted by talking to that person, and another person comes up and tries to pickpocket you. Luckily, I have all my stuff in my front pockets, but it is something to be aware about. And it's also happened to me twice. So I know it does happen, but luckily you just have to ignore them and go against trying to be nice, but just ignore them, and then I haven't had any issues.
And I feel like a sort of a firm no thank you. So they might try to engage with you to kind of get you to come over, and you just say no thank you and keep moving. And it really hasn't been an issue for us. And then we take a look at, what's the main industry? How do people make their money here? And tourism is the main industry, and you can definitely see that. And I'll say, though, that even though tourism is the main industry, and there are a lot of tourists, the Romans don't seem as bothered by us as maybe the people in Florence did. And I think it's because it's spread out a little more, so we're not tripping over each other. And I feel like we saw a lot of locals during our time here versus mostly tourists. Now, there's a lot of tourists, but I also feel like we got a decent mix of tourists and locals while we were here.
Yeah, I agree.
And the other way they make their money is, this is also a business capital, and lots of government work goes on here, and the government buildings are beautiful. I can't even imagine getting dressed every day and going into these historic buildings and having that be your daily office, but that's the main way people make their money here. Then we look at, what's the weather like in a place. And so this is, again, a Mediterranean climate. So it's the climate that we love. It's warm in the summer, cool in the winter. We are here during the month of October, and it has been a mix of everything. We've had some windy days, some rainy days, some sunny days, and a nice mix. So it's been fun to kind of watch the weather change while we're here.
I've had to wear my jacket a couple of times as we're going out, but then end up taking it off too, because it ends up becoming sunny. So it's a good weather better system that they have here. It's nice that they ordered it.
Just for us. Next thing we do is take a look at, is a city walkable? Because we don't tend to rent a car, and we certainly aren't going to get on a scooter, and so we walk everywhere we go. In fact, I had to buy a new pair of tennis shoes for the first time while we were traveling because we walked them out. So Rome is absolutely walkable. In fact, it's more walkable than I realized. I was expecting, because it's such a big city, I thought things were going to be spread out so much more than they are. But even from like sort of the two farthest tourist destinations, so you've got the Vatican on one end and then the Colosseum on the other end, and there's only 2.5 miles between these two beautiful big destinations, and then all of the other things are in between. So Rome is very walkable.
Being a walkable city, that's kind of the highlight of our stay here, because it's so easy. The sidewalks are so easy, the streets are wide and they're easy, and even crossing the street, it seems like the pedestrians do have the right of way. You still have to be careful, but for most part, we've had cars stop and allow us to cross the street. So it's very easy to cross the street, and it's very easy to walk around. And in a lot of cases, we're noticing that the taxis are kind of bunched up at the center of town and stuff, so it doesn't seem like it would really be beneficial to take a taxi. It's just as beneficial to walk.
Yeah.
You get there, you know it's going to take 35 minutes, and it's an enjoyable walk. So
yeah, because everything is
nice
so
and easy.
beautiful. So you get to see all the beauty and things that you would miss if you did hop in a taxi. Like, we're always stopping in churches. We'll see a little piazza and kind of go see what's all around there. So I feel like you'd be missing things by taking the public transportation. So a big thumbs up on that. Rome is highly walkable. Then, well, that leads us right to public transportation, and the public transportation seems very well developed here. You see the trams running through the city, you see the buses all the time, and so I feel like if you wanted to, you'd have plenty of access. And then the big deal thing is also the train stations, and so you have access to the trains to take you anywhere you'd like to go for a day trip or to your next destination from Rome. Anytime we're somewhere, we also like to be close to the airport, just to know that if we needed to get home, we'd quickly and easily be able to do that. And Rome has a nice big international airport, and from the city center, it's about 30 or 40 minutes. When we arrived, we came by train, so we haven't been to the airport yet, but we do have a shuttle service scheduled for 4 a.m, so fingers crossed he shows up to take us there, and it's supposed to take 30 to 40 minutes to get there. And so I feel like we've heard great things about the Rome airport, but that's another big plus.
We'll let you know if he shows up. He did respond to our text, so we should be okay.
Yeah, it just makes a little nervous when you've got a 4 a.m. because people aren't out and about, and so hopefully, I don't like to schedule our flights that early, but there we go. The next thing we take a look at is are we going to get bored? Like, are there plenty things to do in the location we're at? And Rome, there are so many things to see and do. And last week we kind of went over with you how we plan a month's stay. And in Rome, so what I've been doing is plugging like one thing to do per day into our calendar. And with one thing to do per day with 30 days, we're running out of days, and I still have all kinds of things that we're kind of doubling up on to make sure we're able to see and do everything we want to see and do. So the highlight for me maybe is the Colosseum. So far the highlight has been going into the Colosseum. That was breathtaking. I love stopping in, I've said again, the churches, and Vatican City was really incredible. How about you?
I also agree. The Colosseum was awesome to see. And then all the churches, all the paintings, it's just amazing. There's so many churches and not one is the same.
No, and they have like beautiful like artwork or sculptures by Michelangelo, like all the famous painters and sculptors, like that artwork is right in the churches. So that's been incredible to see. We love stumbling on the little piazzas. We love stopping for some gelato. Like, there's so much to be able to see and do, but we really did kind of go over a bunch of details for that in last week's video. So I'll put that video down below. So if you're interested in kind of seeing all the things you could get up to here, you can take a look at that.
And if you like history, you will not be disappointed coming to Rome.
Yeah. Oh, one other thing I will say is it's really important that you book things in advance, because we thought we're here for a month, so we can book things when we're here, and we're very flexible on when we can go, but that wasn't the case. You really need to set an alarm for when a ticket becomes available for you to book, because there were several things we didn't get to go inside to be able to see and do because we just couldn't get tickets while we were here. They were sold out. And even for the Colosseum, we had to try for several days to be able to hope to get some tickets. So really, they say that in some places, book in advance, but in Rome, really book in advance. Things are really sold out. We tend to be beach destination lovers, so one question we always ask is the location near water? And Rome definitely has the Tiber River running through it, and we have beautiful walks where we walk along that, and it's really lovely and sort of does something wonderful to your soul. But no, Rome isn't on water in that beach destination kind of way. The next thing is, are we going to enjoy the food here? So what's the food scene like? And it's Rome, so you've got all your fabulous pizzas, pastas, gelatos, tiramisus, like all of the things that are just fabulous. The food here is incredible.
When we first got here, we ate at a couple spots, and I was just amazed on the flavor and the freshness of the sauces in the pasta, the toppings on the pizza. And it was a freshness to it. And as we are eating more out and then at more restaurants, we're finding out it's like anything else. You have your good restaurants and you have your bad restaurants. Restaurants are trying to cut corners, and some are really authentic and really do a good job. So it's hit or miss. If you find a good spot, stick with it, because it's great.
We've done that. Where we return kind of to the same place over and over again because we know the food is going to be good, and then we're like, okay, we're going to branch out. And so we've had some real scores and we've had some misses. But overall, your favorite food is pizza and pasta, so this has been like heaven. But sometimes too much of a good thing is too much of a good thing, and I think we're ready to, Rick wants his breakfast burrito when we get home. But the food scene here is lively. The other thing is eating outdoors is just so beautiful. So I love being able to sit out and people watch, and you get to sit and relax and enjoy your wine while you're having it's just beautiful. So the outdoor eating is part of the culture here, and that is lovely. The next thing we want to take a look at, we're not spring chickens anymore, and so we want to make sure that there is access to good medical care wherever we're at. And unfortunately, we got to experience a little bit of the healthcare system here in Rome, and it was great. And so I feel very confident that if you are in need of any medical care here, you're going to be well taken care of. In fact, when we were at the hospital so I shared with you a couple weeks ago that I had an x-ray on my shoulder. I went back and had an MRI. That all went very smooth, but we had interacted with a few of the other people who were there, and there was a family or a couple who was coming from a cruise ship. The wife was admitted to the hospital, and she was going to be staying for a couple of days. It just seems like the healthcare system here really seems to work.
It's very easy also for us coming in, making an appointment. We just went online, emailed to see if they had appointments available, and they did. So very easy to get appointments, and also the payment, once we were done, especially with your MRI, we were done on both occasions. We left the hospital paying just over €2, or just over $2 is what it was for us. And that was for the administrative fee for paperwork. And so we keep checking with our insurance company to see, if a claim's been submitted. And once that claim is submitted, we'll go ahead and pay that bill. I'm assuming we're going to be paying a bill, but either way, with the x-ray, it was only for that whole visit, seeing the doctor and going over cortisone shot and all that stuff, it was only €194. And then with the MRI, it was €350, I believe. But both occasions, we left there paying just €2.
So if we get the bill for it, that's how much it'll be, and that still seems very reasonable. And then the MRI was really nice because I came in one day, they did the imaging, and then the next day we got an email. I left with the disc of the actual MRI that I can take back with me to the States. And then the next day we got an email where they gave all the results. So a doctor or somebody had read it, and they had said what they saw. And then they recommended a follow-up with an orthopedic surgeon back in the United States. And so it just felt very efficient. We weren't waiting a long time to get in for the appointment. When we emailed, we got an appointment within 2 days. And then the very next day, we got the information back. So I feel like the healthcare here is a score.
Yeah. Very easy to navigate, so you'll have no problem whatsoever.
Yeah. The next thing we take a look at is the cost of living. How are we going to be able to manage to stay within our budget in a particular city? And Rome is not an inexpensive city, but it's also not outrageous either. So I'd say our typical meals when we eat out range anywhere from $40 to $55. Our Airbnb, I booked a year in advance, and we're a mile and a half out of town, and that was $2,200. I think that was a good deal, though. I think if I tried to do it again, I probably would be closer to $4,000. But overall, I would say we are able to do what we want to do here, but we have to be mindful and realistic with what we can do.
And being mindful, that's a good description, because we're always careful on what we spend to make sure we stay in budget, and we do have to watch it a little bit more here, with the exception of wine. We can buy as much wine as we want, and we'll never go over budget. It's crazy.
Well, and I'll say that's true. And I'll say you doing the travel spend app has really helped us stay on track with our budget. So we kind of know where we're going to, how much we have to spend within the day to stay on track. And sometimes we make the decision to spend more than that because we know we want to do that, and it'll just average out as we go. But I do feel like keeping that travel spend app really helps keep us on track. But we do have to really be mindful here in Rome, because it's not an inexpensive place to be. All right, then the next thing is really like, how do we feel when we're here? What's the overall sort of vibe like? And for me, I'll say it's a surprisingly peaceful for a big city. Like, it's so livable. And for me, one of the things I love is the clergy are all out and about, just kind of walking around with us all the time. And so there's always priests and nuns, and they're like laughing and talking and enjoying an Aperol Spritz, shopping, riding their mopeds. It just adds to sort of the charm of the city. And I make Rick stop all the time, because I'm like, it's like a movie set. It's like a movie set. So I feel like there's a beautiful, it's beautiful here.
My overall vibe when we first got here was fantastic. Easy to walk around. It's a big city, and wherever you turned a corner, you saw something historical, and that's what was nice is being able to see history here with your own eyes.
Yeah.
So that was really nice. But beyond that, the people here have really stood out to kind of, I don't know if they like tourists, or if they're in their own world, where you can get cut off a lot of times, where someone will walk right in front of you, someone will really not bump into you, but run into you and not even apologize. So, and that's fine, but it kind of gets to you because you end up acting that way. So you end up not looking at people in the eyes and saying hi or buongiorno or something like that. We make sure we do that every time we come into a shop, and we've come across some fantastic people that are super nice, super helpful. But then in the same sense, we've come across people in our everyday shoppings and grocery stores and restaurants, and the people seem to be irritated. I don't know if it's who they are and it's just abnormal, but it is something as a first vibe that I've really noticed is the Italian people on the street and in the workforce seem to be in their own world, and they're not aware of their own surroundings, and end up cutting people off and kind of being rude the way I would judge it as rude. And I don't want to be rude about it, but that's just my first impression and what I have noticed.
Yeah, there's a level of indifference, and as Americans, I think I've shared this sort of analogy before, but I feel like we're sort of golden retrievers. Like, we're very eager and happy and ready to have conversation, and there does seem to be sort of a level of indifference, and yet whenever we do engage and interact with someone where we have the occasion to, they've been nothing but kind, wonderful, and really helpful. And now for the big question, could we live here? And before we answer this, I'll say Rome has two big deal things working against it. And one is that we haven't loved our Airbnb. So we've definitely had some struggles here at our Airbnb. And so that impacts our pleasure somewhere. And then the other thing is it's the last stop on our 5-month adventure. And so whenever we get to the end of our adventure, we're eager and ready to go home. And so I think those two things could impact how we view Rome. But what would you say? Could you live here?
No, I couldn't live here. It's a big city, and just from what I experienced for traveling, I can't see myself live here long term. But definitely coming back for a week for sure.
Yeah. For me, I'm a little more, it's not a total yes for me, but I do feel like, so we've been in Venice and we've been in Florence and we've been in Rome. And I would say of the three, Rome is absolutely the most livable.
I agree.
And I do feel like it's a very livable place. I think obviously we would choose a different Airbnb, but maybe even, I like the neighborhood that we're in, but I'd like to try a different neighborhood. So if someone said to me, you're going to come back to Rome for a 3-month stay, I'd say okay, and I'd be excited about it. You'd say okay, but maybe not so excited to start with.
We'd have to make some connections with real locals and get to know people.
Yeah,
and
that's a good point. Like, I do feel like we felt a little isolated here.
Right.
We've gotten together with some people for some meetup groups, and so that's been fun. But yeah, there is a level of isolation when there's not sort of that sort of friendly banter and interaction throughout the day. So even though we wouldn't live here long term, it's still one of the top 10 for me destinations to recommend to you to come for a vacation destination, because oh my goodness, that if you've got 3 days or you've got 2 weeks, you are going to be busy and have plenty to be able to see and do. So this is definitely a place that I'm super glad that we came to. But man, our list is short for the places we're going to be coming back to. We hope this is helpful, though, if you're considering coming to Rome for a longer term stay. And then we hope you join us next week, where we share with you everything that we spent during our time here in Rome. But until then, bye.